little bit of a different setup because I kind of have to right now. But yeah, no, sorry for being MIA for a little bit because, you know, life changes and stuff. And so I'm gonna go over the last 4 games for the Vegas Golden Knights, more of a weekly review instead of a nightly review now, but whatever. If it makes you feel any better, the last time I had a kid and then took a little bit of a break from the channel, Vegas won the cup, so. Game 72 against the Chicago Blackhawks. I'm just gonna wear this because like this is supposed to be a play on how Vegas is the most hated team in the league, for generally speaking. Like the general hatred, not like the rivalry hatred, because obviously Battle of Alberta, Battle of Ontario, Battle of Florida. But no, I'm gonna keep this on because we faced 4 different teams. So anywho, game 72 against the Chicago Blackhawks, and the Vegas Golden Knights will win that one 5-3. And yeah, no, the only player that scored for Chicago was Ryan Donato. Former Shark, former Kraken, you know, he went off, he popped off. And that was unfortunate. He scored first in the first period, and then Vegas roars back with a monster second period, scoring 2 to get a 2-1 lead from Stone and Olofsson. And those were within 40 seconds of each other. So, you know, that had to feel good. But then, speaking of within 40 seconds of each other, try 15? Yeah, within 15 seconds of each other, Ryan Donato completes a hat trick, scoring second and third goal. And it was just ridiculous how fast Vegas's defensive structure completely collapsed. And what's funny too is I don't remember which goal this was for, but Ryan Donato entered the face-off after Bedard, I don't think it might have been, I don't know, got kicked out of the face-off dot. So not only did he win the face-off clean, he gets the puck back and buries the biscuit 2 more times within 15 seconds of each other. It was ridiculous and had to feel good for Chicago fans because, you know, but thankfully in the third period, Vegas did typical Vegas third period things, scoring Olofsson, Howden, and Dorofiev. Maybe switch the order on those last 2, but to win 5-3. And Vegas just, it felt like they were trying a little bit too hard in the second period, and then we were able to figure it out. This game was against Spencer Knight as the goalie, and you know, he's been performing really well for Chicago. The Brett Howden was an empty netter, because of course it was. He does nothing but score empty netters, right? And so that makes sense, you know. So 4 versus 3, and then Chicago had a little bit of pressure. But Vegas, way to close it out against a team you should definitely close it out against, right? Speaking of teams you should definitely close it out against, our next game. Game 73 against the Nashville Predators, and it was a doozy because we don't score first. Ryan O'Reilly gets the Preds on the board, but Vegas comes back and they do good things that you should expect out of a contending team against a team that is definitely not contending in the Predators, which, you know, maybe they're just looking for a retool going into next season. That's what Barry Trotz keeps saying, but them getting a lottery pick would definitely help that. Jack Eichel, and then a power play goal, which I need to go grab something real quick. Not that it makes any difference for you guys time-wise, because I'm just gonna cut. He scored on the power play. Of course he did. His first goal back is on the power play because Vegas' power play, #1 in the league, right? How old is this apple? This is too old. I don't know why this one wasn't eaten earlier. Riley Smith scored faster. It was just like super mushy. And anyway, speaking of Brett Howden empty net goals from last game, he does it again, because of course he does. His 22nd of the season, Brett Howden continues this amazing run of being able to pot empty netters. I don't care who else is on the ice, as long as he's one of them when their net is empty, great. Sounds good. But again, this is another example of Vegas winning a game that they absolutely should. And the next couple of games were against playoff teams that we these are more like the test, the prelude to the playoffs, who we're looking to face probably the Blues with how hot they've been. If they keep up this pace, then, you know, winning every single frickin' game, then yeah, we're gonna face the Blues. And I don't want to face the Blues right now. Blues fan reacts like, what a time. Hey, for the first round series, no, yeah, that would not be great. But we got to get through the rest of these games first, and I'm sorry, I'm just kind of glossing over some of these because they were a while ago, and so it doesn't really matter me going over the intricacies of the game, but I'm gonna do that with the next 2 because I watched them recently, right? So next game,
I hate you.
Me actually having a jersey for every game. This is great. I'm very blessed to have the jerseys that I do have. But speaking of blessed, the Edmonton Oilers win 3-2. And this game, the first period, Vegas completely running the show, and we get on the board first, 1-0. Nick Waugh, of course. You know, fantastic stuff. They have Leon Draisaitl back. They don't have McDavid. We don't have Tomas Hertl, who is arguably one of our best players. Like, obviously, Eichel and McDavid would be the better comparison, but we don't have Hertl, and that is severely limiting us. And then we also didn't have Petro for a good chunk of these games because he was injured in the same game that Hertl was against Tampa Bay. He hadn't been playing since, which unfortunate. And you know, missing Petro would probably be the best defenseman on the Oil. Like, obviously Ekholm's fantastic, and they have Bouchard, who, please pay them $10 million. Like, seriously, I that would be such a joy to Vegas fans if you paid him $10 million. Jake Wallman, who I had in my video for favorite player on the Sharks. I like that kid. He's an offensive defenseman, offensively minded defenseman, and he scores his first since joining the Oil. And then it was probably Draisaitl on the power play. Yeah, of course it was. And then Victor Arvidsson, who, you know, a fantastic second period for the Oil. It was a flip-flop of the first and second period, where Vegas running it through, and then Edmonton ran it through in the second, and it just was the exact opposite, but Edmonton capitalized on all of their chances in the second. And at the tail end of the first, Edmonton started to pick up momentum, right? And so they carried that into the second period, despite the fact that there was an 18-minute intermission in between, because Jake Wallman scored like 18, 19 seconds into the second period, and then it was again, like back-to-back goals for the Draisaitl power play and then the Victor Arvidsson goal, which, you know, couple of things there, because there was the Victor Arvidsson goal where he kind of pokes at the puck underneath Adin Hill's pad, and so that would be goalie interference. Like that, technically the pad was on it, right? But we didn't really see definitive footage otherwise and the call on the ice was a good goal, but they said confirmed. So I wish they would release some of the camera angles that they have, because what we saw, it looked like Arvidsson just poked it out from underneath the pad of Adin Hill, which technically should have been no goal. And we challenged that. The challenge failed, and that's the first one of the season that we failed in the challenge, but you know, is what it is. And so that goal that maybe shouldn't have counted was the game winner, which is just not how you want it to be. Vegas scores in the third period about halfway through? No, immediately. What am I talking about? Pavel Dorofeev. Of course it was Pavel Dorofeev. He rifles it on and in to the back of the net, and that is his 32nd team leading of the season, and just like unbelievable performance from him. Having 4 power play opportunities for the Oil and 1 for Vegas. Little lopsided. One of those was because of the coach's challenge, but then, you know, I thought it was fairly like called. I think Vegas did commit more infractions. Obviously, that's what was called, so, you know, is what it is. There were a couple that I thought could have been power play, but it's not the end of the world, right? We split the season series with the Oil, 2 wins apiece, and, you know, it's just honestly, like, I am more afraid to face St. Louis than Edmonton in the playoffs, because St. Louis is on a heater and Bennington is as sharp as ever, reminiscent of his 2019 Cup run, and Stuart Skinner is not strike fear to me. Apparently Calvin Pickard should, because he was in goal for Edmonton in this game. But it's just one of those things where I would rather face Edmonton than either LA or St. Louis, and that's not because I don't fear McDavid or Draisaitl, but I feel like Vegas matches up better against them than they do against the other 2 teams. And that's just how I feel. I'm not saying we want Oil. Like, no, that's ridiculous. The road to the Stanley Cup is going to be hard no matter who we have to face en route to that. I'm not trying to say they're easy pushover. I'm just saying I think LA matches up really well against us, and St. Louis, and we had like a 7-point cushion on first place, 5-point. Now it's down to 3, because after we lost to the Oil, we then also lose to the not Atlanta Thrashers Winnipeg Jets. Which, terrible game from Vegas, because the entire game, all they did was shoot the puck directly into the center of not Connor Hellebuck, Eric Comrie, who he had to be in position. He played correct positionally, but they won 4-0. And one of those goals, I think, was an empty netter. Vegas in the second period allowed 2. Vegas allowed 1 in the first. No, flip-flop those. Scheifele and Lowry in the first, and then Connor... former Vegas Golden Knight legend Colin Miller on the power play in the second period. And even though the second period Vegas played better, they could not find the back of the net. The scoring cannot dry up at this point. And yes, not having a power play opportunity other than one early in the first. We had 1 in the game, right? Yeah, another one where we only had 1, and Winnipeg had 2. So it wasn't like it's like egregious one way or the other, but. Part of the thing that sucks about being power play merchants is when you don't get power plays, like games 4 through 7 in any playoff series, it's going to be rough if we can't find a way to score 5 on 5. I would argue that that's the reason that we beat Edmonton in the second round 2 seasons ago, where they were lethal in the power play because it was Edmonton, and we were just so much better than them 5 on 5. Being power play merchants for the first time in our franchise's history has been fantastic, and I'm not trying to ask for a difference there, but I want our 5 on 5 scoring to also be at least somewhat consistent. And it wasn't neither of these 2 games, which is why we lost against the 2 playoff teams that we really need to have as litmus tests going into the playoffs, you know? And obviously we don't have Hurdle, we didn't have Petro. Yeah, Petro came back and he wasn't on ice for a goal against, I guess, so that was good. After the 2 periods, Akira Schmid got in for the third period. He only saw, 2 shots? We only allowed 2 shots in the third period. Granted, it was all Winnipeg's game at that point because they were up 3-0, and they did a fantastic job of just playing however they wanted to play. They limited Vegas's offensive zone time. They were able to just rag the puck around and just eliminate any real dangerous opportunities that Vegas had because, again, Vegas kept shooting directly into, I know it's a circle on his crest, but doesn't mean target practice there. You got to aim for the corners. You got to go for around the goalie. And I know that they did a really good job at Winnipeg. I noticed this while watching the game of blocking lanes, blocking different things, and the lane that was open was right where Eric Comrie was, but it was just frustrating because it seemed like Eric Comrie was only having to make saves by scooping it towards his chest, which isn't exactly true. There were also times where he had his glove up and caught it. I know that's also a circle. Those are not where you aim. you aim elsewhere. Adin Hill lost these last 2 games, but they also weren't his fault. The 3 goals, the 2 goals that Winnipeg scored in the first were all cross crease, and you'd like to see a save there, but it was a complete defensive lapse from Vegas, just like the goals from Edmonton and the second and third goal in the second period from them. Samsonov's injured, which is why Schmid was up, and Bruce Cassidy said it was specifically to just give him a, hey, here's NHL ice, and also just see what you can provide for us, which I don't know. With how random Sammy is, if you know that you're getting this from Schmid, do you go with that versus getting possibly this or this from Sam? I don't know what the answer is. That's why I'm not a head coach at all. I'm not a coach. I'm just a fan. And as the fan, I don't know what Vegas is supposed to do. It's not my job to figure it out. It's my job to just enjoy or try to and watch hockey, you know? Overall, we won 2 of the games, we lost 2 of the games, and it is what it is. Vegas needs to figure out how we can win against the playoff teams, because winning against Chicago and Nashville, while great, doesn't help us when we're going to not be playing any team that has performed like they did in the postseason. We have to prep for facing St. Louis, honestly, at this point, and then Edmonton, potentially LA, and then if beyond that, third round, Winnipeg or Dallas again or Colorado. And honestly, the Central in general is just ridiculous this season, and we might face Minnesota, who I would probably want to face them the most just because of how injury riddled they have been. And no offense to Gustafsson, he was in the beginning of the season a very early Vezina nominee and still could be at this point, but out of the teams in the West, every single one of them really has a reason of why you don't want to face them, you know? And that's just how the modern NHL is, and that's great to see. It also, to me, means that whoever wins the Stanley Cup is going to be deserving of it, you know? And so let's go. We have a game tonight that I'm recording this against the Flames. I don't know if I'm going to be able to post that in this video, or I'm including these 2 games in, so it's really games 70, holy moly, 72, right? Through like 76, 7, I don't know, I'll edit it and post it and it'll be here on the screen. But the last 2 games of this video, hopefully, I mean, there's another game tonight, so I might just tack on, you know, depends on, I already edited the rest of the bit, but Calgary and Vancouver. Calgary, that game was fun for multiple reasons. One, a bounce went our way, but getting ahead of myself, the first part of the game, Vegas goes up 2-0, was really just solid, especially because Dustin Wolf, Calgary's goaltender, played really, really well. At the end of the game, you could arguably say that he was their best player, despite the fact that he allowed 2 goals and was down 2-0. Oh, excuse me. He did get first star, so I mean, that makes sense. The Vegas goals, Pavel Dorofeev and Riley Smith. Hold on, I forgot. Riley Smith. Well, not mushy this time. Shea Theodore, fantastic on both of these goals, but unfortunately, despite the fact that we still continue to outplay Calgary, Calgary gets back into it. All within 18 minutes and 52 seconds, which seems like a long time, except 18 minutes was the intermission. 8 seconds left to go in the first period, and it's Hanley who scores, a defenseman who played against us in the Dallas series. That's how I remembered his name. He was on a pair with Harley, not last year's, the year before that. Not ideal to allow a goal 8 seconds before the end of an intermission, right? Except Calgary continues with that momentum through the intermission, because 50-ish seconds into the second period, third period, they score again. Matt Coronado, 43 seconds into the third period. So like 51 seconds, you know, and the rest of the game, Vegas keeps pushing, and Calgary has a couple of pushes, and Nazem Kadri has a couple of pushes, because of course he does. Against Jack Eichel specifically, because they have beef back to their Toronto and Buffalo days, which, okay, especially because high praise for the intermission team. I'm holding a second apple. Because they said that Eichel might be the best 200-foot player in the world, which, yeah, let's go, finally. Getting that recognition he deserves. But the reason I have 2 is because it goes into overtime, and a couple of chances both ways. Aiden Hill's fine, but with like 40 seconds left to go in overtime, Riley Smith behind the net grabs the puck, sends it on. It goes off of Mackenzie Weegar and over behind Dustin Wolf. One of the luckiest bounces we've had in our franchise's history. And it goes in, and Vegas wins in overtime. Fantastic stuff. Just, it's good to get the points. And while I'm still asking how instead of how many, because especially in the regular season, once we've already clinched the playoff spot, it really, like, wins and losses don't matter. I feel like Ted Lasso coming on, but it's less that and more how they play, how they're performing to get ramp up towards the playoffs. And that continues a little bit against Vancouver. I'm gonna keep eating both of these throughout the video. Before I move on completely to this game, Shea Theodore had 3 primary assists in the game. For every single goal was a Shea Theodore primary assist. It's really good to see him do what he'd been doing all season before his broken hand, and be able to replicate all of that. Although, I will say, while the depth scoring increasing over the last couple of games has been nice, I would really like to see Eichelstone and Barbashev do something, because it continued where a lot of the shots were, they were a little bit more dangerous than against Eric Comrie and the Jets, but still a lot were towards the center of the chest, and you can't have that. There were a lot more pipe hits, especially from Eichel. So they got close, but like, just angle it a little bit more in towards the net, you know? Anyway, the Vancouver game started 1-1. I tried watching the first 10 minutes of this game, but when I go on to ESPN Plus and hit play from the beginning, it started me at 10 minutes into the game, and Vegas had just scored on the backhand to tie the game, because Vancouver all Vancouver early. And Vegas did a really good job of limiting them to only one goal, which was Niels Höglander, and then Vegas gets another one on the backhand from Ivan Barbashev. Hey, speaking of that line, there we go. Ivan Barbashev gets a goal. That was great. And a few minutes later, Nick Waugh gets another one. This one goes off of Vancouver defenseman Victor Mancini. He had a rough night. He looked good at different points, but also this goal from Nick Waugh goes directly off his skate and past his goaltender, which we're facing Kevin Lankinen, which is another backup goaltender, because they played back-to-back. Demko played the night before. You can't overplay him, otherwise he'll get hurt, and so I get it. Understandable. You know, we lost to Eric Comrie and Calvin Pickard, so you do you, Vancouver. It wasn't Hill against the Flames. It was Schmid. He played well. He did better than I could have hoped for, right? So that was good. Anyway, back to Vancouver. The reason I remember that is because Vancouver scores their second goal, Aatu Ratu, because I can't remember if it was him, someone pummeled into Hill in the crease, knocked him over, and impeded his ability, in my opinion, for Hill to make a save. And then Hill did not have time to readjust. The one argument that I will give them of why the call on the ice stood as a good goal is because Adin Hill didn't really make an attempt to get back to it. Maybe it's because he thought by sitting on the ice that gave him the best shot to making the save. I don't know. But yeah, no, he let in a goal after being interfered with. That was allowed because, and we lost the challenge. It's 2 back-to-back challenges that we've lost, which is because goaltender interference. The success rate on these challenges is like 55-ish%. Is not good. You would think that National Hockey League coaches would have a better success rate when it comes to challenging that specific penalty because they know what it should look like. But obviously with a success rate that's worse than an F, it's an F. It's not worse than, it is an F in the American education system, then that would be a sign that there's something wrong because they understand hockey. They are supposed to understand the rules, and yet, and obviously there's going to be some where they're challenging just because they want to use it as a timeout, basically, even though they'll send you to the... No, it doesn't make sense. I don't know why the success rate isn't higher for coaches' challenges for goalie interference. The rule needs to be evaluated a little bit more to have a little bit more concrete, stricter guidelines instead of it being completely subjective. And generally, I'm really good at telling whether or not it's goalie interference, and there are some where I was like, that shouldn't come back, and it did, in favor of Vegas. But I don't know. So it's tied 2-2, and Vegas outplayed the Canucks, just like they outplayed the Flames for a majority of this game, but it was still 2-2. And that's good on them for keeping it in it, but also, like, Vegas, what are you doing? These are teams that are, yes, in the playoff hunt, but are looking like they're not going to make it, and you're just on par with them. You need to be on par with Winnipeg, who blew you out 4-0 at home, or Edmonton, which was a little bit closer of a game, sure, but they were also without McDavid. They had Draisaitl, and we didn't have Hurdle. We still don't have Hurdle. We didn't have Petro for that game, but we have Petro back. It's just this giant mess where Vegas needs to tighten up. I was gonna make they just need to tighten up everything, and fortunately we're able to. Victor Olofsson gets a goal again off of Victor Mancini with like a couple of minutes left. And that sucks for Vancouver, especially because they need every point they can get, and we win in regulation. We didn't get an empty netter or anything, but it was good of Vegas to close it out in regulation and just win, especially when we're trying to be able to stay in first in the Pacific. And LA lost last night, so it was not in overtime. And the Oilers lost and not in overtime. That's good for us. So the playoff picture right now, and it doesn't do any good. And I had some discourse on Twitter about this. You take who you get, and you don't complain, you don't ask for any specific opponent, right? You can think that an opponent will match up better against us and whatnot. And like my brain, the way that it works is like I have to think about this kind of stuff. But it's just really, really good. And so we're 5 points up on the Kings with 5 games left. And so it's easily made up, but we also would have the tiebreaker, so we would clinch the division with another 5 points, which then we would face the St. Louis Blues, right? It's a great reward for that. First rounds in back-to-back years of Dallas, and then this year's St. Louis team, who's on an absolute, like, they look unbeatable since the Four Nations face-off. But you take what you take what you get, Don't complain. The road to the Stanley Cup's hard no matter who you face. You gotta win those games, right? That's when it doesn't matter how, it just asks how many wins you got. So let's take that into Colorado, show a good effort tonight against McKinnon and the Avs, and come out on top, right? We're in control of our own destiny. Let's take it. That's gonna be it. I can't remember how many games this is for that nightly review, weekly review at this point. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good night.